Okay, so 5 games have passed. The sixth would have been tonight had it not been postponed against Morocco Swallows. So I thought something that would be interesting for me to do is to start looking at what we think is our best starting lineup at Orlando Pirates. It is Talking Buccaneers with me, Fumani Msisinyani. And yeah, before I get started, a few disclaimers. 5 games is a very small sample size. We've got a lot of players still yet to, feature for us this season. And maybe there will be a bias of players that we have seen already. And yeah, maybe let's get into it. Let's get started. So to kind of introduce what I'll be doing today is I've got an Instagram page, Talking Buccaneers, for those of you that don't know. And I ran a poll on Sunday morning where I let the fans, you guys, pick who you think are the best players in each and every position. So goalkeeper, left back, every position on the field. I let the fans pick who they think from the options that we've got in a poll kind of situation. People voted. So another disclaimer is this channel, as you will know, is still a growing channel. We've not got a lot of followers yet, so it's also a sample size in that it's not a very large Orlando Pirates community that voted. I think on average, on each and every position, it was around 500 people that actually voted, which is quite impressive for me to have 500 people voting. But yeah, so let's get to it. Very interesting choices that you guys have picked. And yeah, quite a few surprises in some positions, if I'm entirely honest, for me. I've also had my vote. I've also cast my vote as well to sort of, influence the decision to go my way. No, I'm kidding. But it was interesting for me because some of the choices that I saw were something that I didn't expect. And I'll get to that. A few interesting choices in a couple of positions. But yeah, let's dive right into it. So, like I said, on average, around 500 people voted. And yeah, starting off in the goalkeeping position, interesting choice by you guys here, especially when I think about some of the things that I see on social media when I interact with the fans and the people that follow my channel, Talking Buccaneers. And yeah, something that I constantly see is a lot of people are not a huge fan of Sipho Shahine, yet he made number one. He got that spot. You guys think Sipho Shahine, or majority of you guys think Sipho Shahine is the man to start for us. He's the best goalkeeper for us at the club. Again, I think it's one of those where there is a bit of a bias. We have not seen Melusi Buthelezi. I mean, Richard Ofori, we've seen already. And 32%, only 32% of you guys thought Richard Ofori is the best goalkeeper at Orlando Pirates, as compared to a whopping 49% who voted that Sipho Shahine is the best at the club. And for me, again, I say it is quite surprising when I look at just how much negative stuff I've seen on the internet of Sipho Shahine, and yet almost half of the people that voted think that Sipho Shahine is the best goalkeeper at Orlando Pirates. Again, Melusi Buthelezi we have not seen. He might just turn out to be the best goalkeeper at the club, so I think there's a bit of a bias there. Yet he got 17% of the voters thinking that he should be the goalkeeper at the club, and 2% for Bonjani. Moving along to centre back, not many surprises here, to be entirely honest. I think most people voted like I did, starting off at right centre back. Most of you guys thought that 37% of you guys thought that at right centre back should be Nkosinathi Sibisi Bodlela, as he's affectionately known, the number 5 defender of the season last year. I mean, started off this campaign fantastically. Despite his short height, there's not a lot of negatives about him. I think he's well worth wearing that Orlando Pirates shirt. He's one of those that will die for the shirt. I mean, I think of it might have been the MTN 8 final last year that he got injured and had a bandage on his face or something like that. And I think that just characterizes the kind of die-hard attitude, die for the shirt kind of player that Sibisi is. And I'm not surprised that 37% thought he should partner with who on the left centre back you guys have chosen. And bit of a surprise. Well, not really a surprise, but I thought that, most people would have went for Thapelo Xhoki, him being one of the leaders at the club, him wearing that captain's arm belt for us a lot of the time in Maela's absence. But you guys chose Olisanda. I mean, it's not that I'm shocked. I also voted for Olisanda. I think he's just a rare breed of not so much in the modern game, but when you look at just the kind of players that we have, I think Nda is just fantastic in his ball playing ability, his ability to play equally as well with his left foot like he does with his right, and just how cool and composed Nda is. So I'm not surprised that you picked him, but I thought most people would have went with Xhoki, thinking that Sibisi and Xhoki have got a bit of a partnership going now. But yeah, Olisanda takes that left centre back spot alongside Nkosinathi Sibisi. I also think it's a good, dynamic with how they contrast each other, with Nda being more of the ball playing centre back. Sibisi is decent in his ball playing ability, make no mistake about that, but he's more of the tough tackler and the marker and the one who will kind of engage in those challenges, whereas Nda will maybe mostly sweep up behind Sibisi and be the one that initiates attacks for us from the back. So I think that's a good centre-back pairing. It is fair to mention that so it was 37% for that partnership of Sibisi and Nda, and not so far in 31% was Sibisi and Xhoki. So Sibisi and Xhoki, 31% of the voters thought Sibisi and Xhoki is the second best partnership at the back for us, and Nda and Xhoki, surprisingly 26%. So 26% thought that Nda and Xhoki should start together. So this is very tight. It's not one of those obvious ones, but obviously most people think Sibisi and Nda should play together, and then only 6% thought that Mthethwa should partner with someone at the back. And I intentionally say someone because that's just how people voted, that it should be someone. That's how I titled the vote. But only 6% thought that Mthethwa should start at the back. So yeah, moving right along to right back. Another one of those where I got a bit of a shock. I thought it would have been a bit tighter. I thought it would have been somewhere around 50%, maybe 60-40. But yeah, I got a bit of a surprise. Munyani edging Shandu so much. Shandu only getting 28% of voters thinking he should start at right back. So Thabiso Munyani gets that right back spot with 72% of the voters voting his way. I mean, that one is an interesting one for me, to be entirely honest with you, especially because I certainly love Thabiso Munyani. I think I love his energy. I love him going forward. Though I think currently at the moment, I think Shandu has been playing better. Just looking at his numbers, he's got I think he scores around 1.72 at the moment. He's 1.72 goals per 90 minutes. So that is for every 90 minutes that he plays, he scores 1.72 goals. I think that's the statistic. He's got the better goal scoring rate. So I know Lepasa is the top goal scorer currently, but for the number of minutes that Shandu has played, compared to the number of goals that he scored, he's got a better goal scoring rate. And not just that, I think it's not coincidental that he scores more. I think what Shandu has kind of been brilliant with is the inverted run. So I just love the partnership that he's got with Saleng on the right, who Saleng sometimes will just, go to the touchline, to the byline on the right, and the channel Shandu make use of that inside channel instead of going out wide, which we always see Monyani do. Is he always goes outside of Salen. Shandu sometimes inverts his run and he gets straight into the box, and sometimes unmarked, because I think it's a surprise package for most teams. They don't expect Shandu to be going inside there, especially with other players occupying other defenders. He's always just makes that third man run, a free run into the box, and he always gets opportunities to score. So I thought maybe most Buccaneers will have loved that. That's something that I've observed, not just in the times that he scored, but he always makes an inverted run and he gets into the box. And we've seen that for quite a while. I think even going back defensively, well, both of them, to be entirely honest, aren't the most amazing defending right backs. I can be entirely honest about that. However, I do think that Shandu is a bit more responsible than Munyani. But you guys have spoken. Thabiso Munyani should be the right back at Orlando Pirates, according to 72% of you guys. And at left back, no surprises there. Paseka Mako, 80%, a whopping 80%. I think of all the players, of all the positions, I think Paseka Mako might have the most votes. I think even the highest percentages. I think this is the most, so it says to me, he's the most convincing player for us. Well, it could be that it's because his competition is not that great, or it just could be that he's just a fan favorite for most Buccaneers. But either way, 80% of the people that voted, and I just think it's a general thing with most Buccaneers, know that Paseka Mako is the best left back at Orlando Pirates, arguably even the best player. But it's hard to say those things when it comes to defenders. I would say that about Nda, but with the offensive quality that we've got, it's going to be hard to make that point. But yeah, I think that was an obvious one. Just to mention, Mayela was behind him with 16%, and 4% said Dion Hotto should play at left back. Yeah, interesting 4% of people that thought that. Moving right along, so we are moving to central midfield. So this is going to be an interesting one. Again, I grouped these ones in terms of combinations, just like centre back. I grouped these in terms of combinations. And so I had a couple of I asked that the voters would send their vote in terms of which central midfield pairing should start in central midfield. And yeah, I will start by announcing the right central midfielder. And again, if you've been to Orlando Stadium, if you've watched Pirates, maybe even on TV, maybe it's audible, but if you've been to the stadium, you will not be surprised that most people love Miguel Tim. So he takes that right central midfield spot. Yeah, so just to mention, this was him and his partner, whom I'll announce in just a bit, got 32% of people thinking they should start together. And yeah, that was a tight one because the percentage that follows is 23%, and the one that follows after that is 21%, and then there's a 11% as well. So I'm looking at this in terms of a pie chart, and I can see that the share of the pie that Tim and his partner got isn't that obvious or that dominating or that large. So yeah, Tim at right central midfield, alongside at left central midfield, Ndabatetwa Ndlondlo. A bit surprising for me again. I mean, if you would have said this to me last year in October, I definitely would have agreed with you, seeing that Ndlondlo, when he signed for Orlando Pirates, was definitely a fan favorite. A lot of people thought he was such a smart capture. He still is, but I think he went through a rut of bad performances last year where he fell out of favor, not just with the coach, but even with the fans that I certainly interacted with. Thought that he's a bit irresponsible in midfield. He makes a lot of wayward passes, but I think there's been a revitalization and a rebirth of Ndlondlo in midfield this year. This start of the season, he's obviously playing at left central midfield in the absence of Tim. It is interesting to see what will happen when Tim returns, whether the coach will keep with Ndlondlo and Munari at central midfield, who have been playing there, or he will go to Munari and Tim or something like that. I mean, there's still someone like Baloni to get introduced into it. And yeah, so it's just going to be interesting to see how it unfolds going forward. But you guys think Ndlondlo should be playing with Tim in central midfield. And I do think it's an interesting dynamic, especially because obviously we know Tim loves his tackles. He loves to work for the team. But I think Thabang Munari has been doing great in that. He's been protecting that defense. Every time Pirates go forward, Ndlondlo will join in with Patrick Maswanganyi every time going forward. And then Munari will stay and defend. I think Tim can do that, but I think where you've got a bit of a contrast in terms of Tim and Munari is that Munari is more of a safe passer. He keeps it ticking for the team, which is very important. He's the player that has maybe a 90 or more than 90% pass accuracy after a match. Whereas with Tim, he likes to risk as well. He will play those risky passes every now and again. And you've got Ndlondlo, who's quite like that as well. Ndlondlo will also play those vertical risky passes, and I think his passing accuracy should be very low because he likes to risk and he'll make those bad passes every now and again. But Tim also likes to play those passes, and I think it's going to be interesting to have those two playing together because there's just going to be a lot of adventurous passing going forward when you play Tim and Ndlondlo, in my opinion. And yeah, so moving right along to the forward positions, the three men behind the striker. Yeah, and I think this is another one of those obvious ones. I don't think you need me to even dwell too much on it. The player that was robbed last season, we all know, of winning the player of the season, the DStv player. I forgot what the award is called, but he was robbed. He only won the player's player of the season, which is a huge award because your peers think you are the best player that they've played against all season. So yeah, I mean, Munapule Saleng, just behind Paseka Marco, he got 79% of you guys thinking he should start at right wing. And I'm really surprised how people... Well, I mean, I'm sure if you guys would come on here would have compelling reasons as to why he shouldn't start, because 13% of you guys said Maswanganyi should play on the right. 8% said Vincent Pule, quite surprising, should play on the right. Obviously, Vincent Pule is a great player, has been a great player in the past for Orlando Pirates as well. But yeah, I mean, it is interesting that 8% put him over Saleng and other players. And 13% thought Maswanganyi should play on that right side, which obviously wouldn't be a bad thing because Maswanganyi is left-footed like Saleng, though Maswanganyi is a bit of a different player than Saleng in that he's more of outside-the-box operator, and Saleng is an outside-of-the-box operator, but he definitely gets into that box as well. And yeah, Saleng also offers that outlet in terms of speed and directness, whereas Maswanganyi likes to play in those channels and in those pockets. So it would be a bit of a change in how we play if we played Maswanganyi on the right instead of Saleng, in that I think what we would also lack is that person who's going to be very direct. I think we'd have a lot of creative players who don't really get into the box and try and score goals. I think Maswanganyi is very great, as we've seen in these 5 games, but he's more of a creator for other players, whereas with Saleng he wants to get those goals for himself. So yeah, Saleng, otherwise 79% of you guys think Saleng should play on the right wing. Not surprising. Moving right along to the central attacking midfield position, and this is another one which was tight, only separated by 1%. And it is interesting as to whether, had this player been available, had he played games, if he would have just edged the person that you guys voted should play in that position, and I'll say their names in a bit. But yeah, it is interesting because it's a very tight one, and I wonder what the reason for that is. It's really, really tight, and yeah, 33% of you guys, which was the majority in this case, thought that Patrick Maswanganyi should play at number 10. I think so as well. I will confess, I voted that maybe I was that extra 1%. I voted for Maswanganyi as well to play as the number 10. But interestingly, 32% of you guys thought Thembinkosi Lorch should play as the number 10. I mean, obviously, I'm not surprised. We all know what a quality player Thembinkosi Lorch is. Yet Maswanganyi just edged him with 1%. Is it because, Maswanganyi has played and Lorch hasn't? It could be that. Maybe when Lorch returns, most people think, no, you know what, let's restore order. Thembinkosi Lorch, the player who has been the best player at Pirates for years now, let's get him back. But yeah, obviously we know with Lorch, there's always this or that, injuries and other things, why he's not available for us a lot of the time. And I think it's great that we have people like Maswanganyi, who's 25 years old at the moment and has still got a long way to go in terms of his career at Pirates. So it's great to have people like him. And you guys obviously believe in him. But I think it's interesting for me to tell you that after Thembinkosi Lorch, 17% of you guys thought Relebogile Ratoma should play as the number 10. And that's a very interesting choice. Obviously, with his vision and his passing ability, and just in how he plays on that left wing, cutting inside, maybe he could play in there. He definitely can play in there. We saw he played there versus Jabal, and in games and moments, the front three behind the striker will obviously interchange positions, and he sometimes finds himself as the 10. But 17% of you guys thought he should start at the 10, which is interesting. The interesting question I'd have for you guys is then who should play left wing, but we'll get to that. But 17% of you guys thought Mofokeng should play as the number 10, and 12% of you guys thought Lesedi Kapinga should play as the number 10. And again, it's one of those where I wonder if Kapinga starts to play and we are yet to see him play for the club. I mean, it's been a while since he's played, consistent competitive football. Obviously, the talent doesn't just go away like that, but maybe it's going to take some time for him to get going again. And he's not getting younger. He's 28 years old, so he definitely needs to hit the ground running and not put this season to waste, because if this season goes to waste, then he's 29 and, very soon he'll be in his 30s. So yeah, going to be interesting to see Kapinga come into the fold as well. With a lot of games, it's great that you can rest these players and you can move them around and things like that. But I think it's about time that we start to see him. I saw one picture of him, I think, since training. So I don't know if he's fit, things like that. But 12% of you guys think he should be playing as the number 10. Going to be interesting when I do this again, hopefully in the future, what the percentage of Kapinga will be at that point. And then just, honorary mention for the 2% that thought Karim Kimvuidi should start as the number 10. Obviously, we know Kimvuidi, we saw him at Maritzburg United, great player, great ball carrier as well. A bit of a different player to what we have currently. I think a lot of interplay kind of players we have in Maswanganyi, Lorch, Mofokeng, Kapinga. Kapinga can carry the ball a bit. Is a dribbler also. Karim Kimvuidi is definitely a powerful player who can drive with it. And I think it's a quality that you want in your club, and it's a quality that we don't have much of. And I think he's going to be a revelation at Pirates, only 21 years old. I think we've future-proofed in the signings that we've made this season, and I'm so glad and excited to see. Only 3% voted for Kabelo Dlamini, so, for the man who played the majority of games as the number 10 last season, 3% is very small. 3% of you guys voted that Dlamini should play as the number 10, and only 1% voted for Fortune Makaringe to play as the number 10. Moving along, left wing, another one that is interesting, whopping 45%. Let me let you think about it. Who do you think it is? Who do you think 45% of people voted should play as the left wing? Drum roll. Interesting choice for me. I voted for Relebogile Mofokeng as well. We all have seen what he can do. He's brilliant, especially considering his age. for people to vote him to edge over Lodge, that's an interesting one. Lodge, 36%. I thought a lot of Buccaneers maybe will not still yet vote for Mofokeng, but 45% versus 36% for Lodge is quite a thing. So about 10% more people think, 10% more people of 500 people. So, I mean, if it were 10% of 50,000 people, that would be what? 5,000 people more would have voted for Mofokeng over Lodge. And that's interesting for me. And yeah, I mean, obviously Mofokeng is great. I love him. I voted for him. It's just that it is quite, now that I speak of it, sad to see how Lodge is. I mean, obviously, for him not playing and still getting these numbers is great, but to see how Lodge, the great talent that he is, the great player that he has been for Orlando Pirates, to see him kind of dwindling and people sort of wanting to move along into the future. I mean, I'm looking at the numbers and I'm seeing only 7% of Vincent Pule. These players that have been at the club and have been great for us, to see them dwindling, I think maybe part of it would be about age. Vincent Pule being 31 this year, Lodge 30 this year. Maybe it's that, but I also just think that there's just been things around their football, maybe injury or this or that. And yeah, a lot of fans are just now looking forward and not looking back. And this was interesting for me. Just 1% of you guys thought Otladisa should play is the best left wing at Pirates, and then 4% voted for Otto. And it is interesting to see Otto popping up, although the percentages are quite small, with the abuse that I think he sustains or lives through, especially in the stadiums if you've been there. Yeah, there is quite a number of people that are still voting for him and think he should play. I definitely don't think he should be a starter. I think maybe he is a squad player to keep, to keep around because of his versatility and his work ethic. And I said in my previous podcast, I think in the game versus Sekhukhune, if I'm not mistaken, or maybe Royal AM, that it was interesting to see him come on, and I was happy to see him come on and contribute. And yeah, that's great. I think he's a great player to have, in the squad, in and around, as long as he's not on a huge salary, which he's rumored to be on. But yeah, maybe he is a bit too expensive to just keep around. But if he's just a player who's in the squad, I think he's 32 this year, he's a great player to have. He's very fit, he works hard, and yeah, can do better in terms of composure and final product and things like that. But he seems like a wonderful chap and wonderful guy to have in and around the squad. And 4% of you guys think he should be playing at left wing, and I disagree with you. But yeah, and then you've got Maswanganye as well, who locked horns with Pule with 7% of the votes thinking Maswanganye should play on the left wing. But Mofokeng edges over that one. Most of you guys think Rile should be the left wing at Orlando Pirates, and I'm not surprised. And finally, getting to the striking position, I think this is not going to be surprising for you guys, though I will have expected more, but the numbers do make sense in a sense. But yeah, 65% thought the number 9 should be the number 9, Zakhele Lepasa, the man on form, the man who's scoring the goals. I think quite a bit of a revelation for us this year, on the goal scoring form of his life. Has never scored as many goals as he has. I think he's just on fire this year. I don't think it's a coincidence. He does seem like he's someone who studies the game and works a lot. Certainly when I look at his movement, he seems like he's been working on that. And yeah, I think can still do better in terms of finishing. And I know it's funny for me to say, with him having scored the number of goals that he has already, but I still do think he can do better. I think if he's better at finishing, he maybe scores even more goals with the chances that he gets or has gotten so far. I think he scores even more goals if he's a better finisher. Watched him in the preseason. I think he can do better in terms of his finishing and things like that. But yeah, you guys have voted for Lepasa. 65% of you guys think Lepasa should be the starter, and 31% say Kemid Erasmus. Obviously, the great player that is Kemid Erasmus. 31% of you guys think he should be the number 9 at Pirates, and it would be interesting. It's another one of those that would be interesting for me to get into, especially because I think the logic would be that maybe he's a better finisher than Lepasa. And last season, I think unfortunately for Erasmus, he didn't have the supply. I thought anyway, he didn't have the supply that he would have wanted, to score the number of goals. But having said that, I know Erasmus is a different player now. Listening to him speak on interviews, that he feels he's got a bit of a bigger role in the club, in the team, than what people think. People think he's just been brought in to put the goals in the back of the net, which he is as a striker. But he thinks that, it's more than just that. And I agree with that. Certainly last year, he turned into the provider for people like Saleng and Chukamanja. And yeah, we see him evolve into a bit of a different role. I know at Sundowns he was sometimes being played on the left wing and things like that. But yeah, 31% of you guys think he should play as the striker, and I think he would definitely score more goals with the support that we've got now behind the striker. And it would be interesting to see that. 2% thought Swaibu Maru should start. 1% thought Evidence Mahopa should start, and 1% thought Evanga should start. So only 4% think neither Lepasa or Erasmus should start, and I think that's criminal. I think that's just very criminal. I think Erasmus and Lepasa are obviously the best strikers at Pirates. It is a coin toss, I beg your pardon, who's the better one. I think it's preference-wise and things like that. I think, obviously, Erasmus is a better finisher, but I think Lepasa is someone who's on his way. I think he can obviously improve in terms of his finishing. He's been doing great. He's great in terms of his movement in the box, his desire, his work ethic, his pressing up front, which are important things for the way that we play. Erasmus, I don't think will give us that pressing for 90 minutes. Maybe he can do that for a half or maybe 60 minutes at most, and then he can get pulled. But I think that's also bad to only give Lepasa 30 minutes and things like that. You certainly want him to be in the game, grow with it, have a feel for it. So maybe Erasmus starts to have a different role this season in that he's the one that comes on later in the games. Maybe if Lepasa is struggling and things like that, and then Erasmus can then affect games with his experience and things like that. Or you bring Erasmus on maybe when you're winning and things like that. But yeah, so that's how you guys voted. It was certainly interesting. I think interesting choices. Not a very it's not a very surprising lineup. I think a lot of players are where they should be. Obviously, people will disagree here and there. I mean, people like Temingosi Lodge missing out, huge shout. People like Lesedi Kapinga, the talent that he is, huge shout, but very understandable in that he's not played yet. People like Pule, I know there's pockets of people who think Pule should be in this. Had he gotten time to play, especially last season, he maybe would be ahead of some players. Yeah, in midfield, I know some people will think it's criminal not to have Tabang Munari in there. I certainly voted, to be entirely honest with you, I voted for Makaula and Londlo. I think it's because of just how simple Makaula keeps it and that he wins the ball and he protects the defense well. I think long term, obviously, I would want for someone else, seeing that Makaula, I think, is 34 this year. But I think currently he's just one of those that if he plays in that midfield, he'd certainly galvanize us. And yeah, Toki missing out. So none of the captains, when I look at this, is on the field. Maybe with the 11 that you guys picked, who gets the captain's arm belt? I think maybe it goes to Tim or Sibisi. Between the two, I think it goes to Sibisi or Tim. And yeah, thank you guys for interacting. Thank you for everyone who engages with us, everyone who took part in the poll. I certainly look forward to doing more of these, and I look forward to you guys participating in them. Until next time, up the mighty Bucks. Cheers. Listen, hit that subscribe button. Do it right now. I demand it. And I thank you for it, for your compliance.